stand to my feet now because Queen, do I need to stand up now? And there you go. God bless. Good afternoon.
God bless. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. And how are you doing?
I'm excellent. I'm
Wonderful.
excited about another week, of course. I'm always excited about another week, but particularly we know we are at the last week of 2020. So this is certainly
the last Sunday.
Last Sunday, right? And
yes, sir.
Man, we talked so much about 2020 getting here, and we built it all the way up, and then now it's here, and now we have once again a prospect of a new year approaching. So in so many different ways, I think it's important for us to be able to reflect a little bit on moving forward. There's a little bit of a trick. Hey, Ma.
Hello.
How are you?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So as we talk about closing out 2020, I think that, and I threw in a little trickeration there. I think that closing a year.
Excuse me. Did you say trick or what?
Trickeration.
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 Let me see if that's a word.
Did you get that from Bishop Chandler David Owens?
If you look at the record, maybe. Yeah.
Check the record.
So I think oftentimes we're very much tempted to spend the end of the year looking back on the year and spending, New Year's Eve and New Year's looking back on the former year. But I actually want to look forward a bit, and I think it's appropriate, especially considering, hey, Ethan. Ethan wanted to get on camera. But I think, he's having a time here. But I think it's appropriate to spend these last moments here not reflecting backward. Last week, we had the thematic topic, treasure it, right? And this week, I want to push us forward and let's talk about handling it. So if there's a little bit of a theme for this conversation, how about simply handle it, okay?
Yeah.
So let's look forward. We take a lot into a new year, and that's part of what we were talking about last weekend. It was the reflection moment. How do we treasure, store up knowledge, experiences to help us move forward, advance, build, and keep momentum going forward? But if we take everything into the new year, we take in a whole lot of stuff that really doesn't belong, and we can't really progress. We don't want to take, for example, excuses into the new year, right? We don't want to take disappointments into the new year. We don't want to take grudges and bitterness into the new year. We want to really move in the new year with the kind of energy, the hope, the faith, and really a plan that allows us to move forward and accomplish and achieve and be what God has called us to be. So that's a little bit of framing around handling it. So let's talk about handling. We go through the practice of setting a New Year's resolution, but I think it's pretty backwards to wait until the end of 2020 to throw together a plan or a resolution or a big goal for the next year. And if we think about handling things, you don't just jump in necessarily. Sometimes you have to, but if all things considered are appropriate and just and prudent, you don't want to just go into a new year with a plan that you come up with just because you realize that the clock is ticking. So part of handling this next year has to do with planning. So let me ask you all a couple of questions. If we are moving into a new year, if we are moving into a new time and phase, and I don't want to say a new season because I don't know that seasons follow the flip chart of a calendar year. I think a big part of handling is planning, and a lot of planning is connected to prayer. a lot of planning is connected to our devotion, but a lot of planning is actually even having the boldness to ask God for certain things. So help us to get our minds in the place that we need to begin to plan for the new year. Where should we start? What steps can we begin to take to plan our approach and even set goals for the new year?
I think you kind of set it up just right, and that's where I would start with my planning, just seeking God to see where He wants us to be and where we want to begin. And planning, a lot of time, planning really begins with uncluttering what's already before you. I know I've worked in administration probably all of my life. And even though administration a lot of times is a supportive role, you're preparing that plant manager or whatever the higher up is before you. So uncluttering that platform to begin to plan the next step or the next phase of the direction that you want to go. That's huge, because like I'll keep my work desk for the next day. We were taught even in secretarial classes and things like that in school to never leave work on your desk, because the next day, you may come in and face something that you hadn't planned for that day. But if you have all this stuff cluttered around, it makes it, it really clouds your mind, because it's like my desk is full of things. If I sit down, it's like, wait a minute, I have to clean my desk off, put everything back where it goes first. And then I can begin to work from that point, or, work from a clean slate. So planning really involves uncluttering what's already before you or what already has been done. And doing that, a lot of times, I see the relevance where we start our new year in the church, because that's how we were started. We were raised in the church to give God your first fruits. And so our first fruits was always a 30-day consecration. And so doing that, I see the correlation between that, and like I said before, the analogy of cleaning my desk off, just having that clean slate, that clean mind, so the Lord can really begin to speak to you, so you can hear, you can see, and you can think, you can process.
Absolutely. Let's parse into that just a little bit. I think that was really, really interesting, and I think can be helpful, because it caught my attention. So as we're talking about decluttering or sifting through some of the things in our mind and our heart, what are we doing? Walk me through what that could look like for a person attempting to declutter our heart and our mind. Is that from reflection? Is that from a position of prayer and reflection? Just give me a little example of how we could actually adopt that.
Declutter, honesty first. A lot of times, to deal with things, you have to be honest with yourselves.
Okay.
Yourself. You can't say, I'm unable to drive and I don't have a driver's license. I don't know why, when you know that they've been taken from you for whatever reason. Being honest with yourself. What did I do to get myself in that predicament? So starting, with that, and then moving forward, whatever that, what do we call it? A lot of times we'll call it the white elephant in the room, or the pink elephant in the room. Acknowledge that it's there.
Wow.
You have to acknowledge that it's there and be honest with yourself and deal with it. Again, dealing with things is not putting the blame on somebody else all the time. And again, I reflect a lot, and here I go again. I'll say, you know, we used to say, Mom, this happened and that happened at school, or the girl up the street doesn't like me. She'd say, what did you do?
Yeah.
She always brought it back to us, but what did you do? What was your role in it? So reflection is, you know, again, just looking not at what someone else did or what you feel someone else put before you, but what was your role in it? You know, where are you at in this?
So almost you're talking about a Santa Claus type exercise. You're making a sort of naughty and nice list, you know. I could picture as you're talking about it, making a list out, because sometimes we don't write like we should. And you know, one of the things I say, especially when I'm talking to younger people, anything you really value, you will write down and you will record somewhere. So what I'm even hearing you say, as opposed to even just sitting and doing it in your mind, you know, a good plan always is written somewhere. I guarantee you the best plans, whether it relates to church, spiritual goals, business goals, your family, I guarantee you the best plans and the best executed plans are written down somewhere. So I hear you almost making a suggestion, not just to do this exercise in your mind, but to pull out a sheet of paper and make yourself a naughty and nice list and say, hey, for the things that didn't go well in 2020, you know, what was out of my control, put it on the left side, and then what was in my control and put it on the right side. And then for the things that go well, you know, and I'm embellishing now a little bit from the point that you were making, for the things that did go well, what things did I have a plan for and achieve through virtue of planning and God's grace and his favor on me? And then what things, you know, happened outside of even my planning? Maybe that's a great exercise to put pen to paper, you know, and actually write that out a little bit. But keep going.
So, you know, again, I think that's I think you asked what the beginning of that looked like. And that's, to me, that's what the beginning of that looks like, you know, just, and like you said, making a list, I guess, you know, I'm saying, what things did I begin, you know, in our 30-day consecration, we lay all kind of things before the Lord, and they say, well, this year, Lord, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Did you fulfill that you promised to the Lord, that you said that you committed to the Lord? Did you just, you know, do that in the 30 days, or did you continue it throughout the 12 months? Lord, I failed you here. You know, we want the Lord to do things and fulfill his promise, but did we fulfill our promise? So again, just doing a self-check, you know, making sure that, and again, that self-evaluation, it goes a long ways, because self-evaluation, like I said, it makes you identify things too. It makes you really be honest with yourself. And a lot of times we want to put things on, the devil did this and the devil did that, but was it really what the devil did, or was it your lack of commitment, or what you did, or you told God, well, wait a minute, God, I told you I was going to do this, but wait until I finish this. You know, put me first, God, and then you fix it.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I take notes during these conversations is I like to not only reflect on those notes, but I also like to pivot and change some of the lines of questioning, as you two know. So I'm gonna pose a question here to your dad. Mom, one of the things that I appreciate that you sort of really brought some light to is by going through this exercise of reflection and being active in reflecting. And again, we made the suggestion of reflect on paper as opposed to just in your mind. I think, again, the very best plans we've ever seen executed have lived on paper with a great amount of detail to it. So I can't emphasize that enough. But even in hearing you, you know, talking about the relationship between reflection and prayer, sometimes we pray and we're wasting real estate. We're wasting, you know, time with the CEO of the universe and all time, right? By praying when we could have done some reflecting and taken that reflection into prayer. Because I guarantee you, there are going to be moments where we say, wow, I don't know that I need to pray to God for this particular thing when he promised it, he equipped, he empowered me, and I dropped the ball. So taking that right back to him is almost a wasted prayer, in my opinion, because there are things where we've dropped the ball. And if we don't take time to actually reflect and think about those things, and again, figure out what was within your control, figure out where your planning, your execution, your commitment, your preparation maybe was the issue and not God, then we can go to God, with more powerful and effective prayers, right? And when I'm saying prayer, I'm not just saying asking. We can say, well, God, give me the attention to detail to carry forth the plan that you have for my life. Give me the determination not to, waver when things are said or when obstacles present themselves. Give me the focus to be able to be attentive to the news and what's going on in the world and be able to engage with people who are sharing this world with me, but also to be able to purge myself, from the negativity or from anything that is unlike, what your word says and what you promise. And then also, give me the honesty to be able to see myself, in what's going on, be able to give or even commit to the strength, to break away from the people and the influences and the language, that might not be helpful to me. Give me the strength to stick to you. Give me the strength to be able to be happy and joyful, in what you promise, and not have to always, run it off of somebody and sound it off and share it. Give me the inner joy, because sometimes, we leak out stuff way too soon and we blame the enemy on interfering, but we got on the microphone and made the public service announcement. But, all those things said, Dad, I wanted to bring this to a question which Mom provoked. How important is reflection in prayer life, but specifically not in the asking part of prayer life, but in the meditating part of prayer life, really sitting and listening for what God has to say? How important is reflecting in a balanced and a healthy prayer life?
Great question. And I was just observing some of the taking in what your mother said. My mom was running in 4 or 5 different places. I look at, well, I like the part of listening. I view God as the ultimate. Nobody is above God's. He is the creator of instruction. God invented instruction. And when you want to go and get your instructions from your professor, you have to listen. When you talk about prayer, believe it or not, you will find often that prayer is looked at as one in a one-way interstate. But prayer is 2 ways. You spend a lot of time asking, not listen to me. A lot of time asking, but not listening. Going into a new year, you can't forget about where you come from. And most of the time, when you go back, I think you just had a birthday.
Yes, sir.
37.
Thanks for putting that out there. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You're more than welcome. Glad to do it. Glad to do it. At 37 years of age, you've had 36 years of past, and you're entering into your 37th year, December. Now, we can reflect on the past. So our prayer life We can talk to God and have a conversation about what has already happened. But then when you talk about the future, you have to sit and listen to the professor, listen to the instructor. So if you ask me, okay, for instance, you may say, well, Dad, what's your plan for next week? I don't know. If we're in tune with God, I'm waiting for an answer. But most of us will pray and then we proceed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pray and we proceed without listening. What happens if you're asking me to make a decision on something, but I don't have an answer? Do we proceed?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I tell you, listen, wait till I get an answer? But what if the answer doesn't come in our time frame? Do we proceed? So in pursuing anything and looking at the future, you have to have an ear to listen. So when you talk to God and pray, now since you petition God, praise God. Look at Solomon. He petitioned God, chapter 6. 2 Chronicles, chapter 6. He petitions God. And after that, they did what they had to do in celebration. Then the resting. God comes to him later with an answer. So when you look at prayer, we can pray all day long. But how about listening? Listening doesn't mean moving. Mm-hmm. Let me go back again. You look at the book of Deuteronomy, coming out of Egypt. Pillar of fire by night, guide them, cloud by day. So they did travel at night and they traveled at day, but there was a time that God said, when I rest, you rest. Now, if I tell you to stay there and don't move until I tell you to move. So what I always think about even with prayer and looking even at the future, first of all, let's put a pin there. All my life, I've heard about New Year's resolution. We've always said.
Did you used to make them before you got saved?
No. Because to me, it was crazy back then, and I wasn't saved. And it's crazy now. Because what are you resolved to do? To repeat the past? What are you looking forward to? But what have you prepared? What you're looking for to do, are you prepared to move in that season? You brought up season. Our lives are built on seasons.
Absolutely.
You can't move. So to answer your question, you have to have an ear to listen to what the Spirit is saying. And we do a lot of praying, but we don't listen. Now, who am I listening to? Am I listening to you trying to tell me? Or I'm listening to God. And we really have gotten so much on a time. Everything now is on a time frame, time limit, time. But God is time. You know, now there's an expectation of what you will like, but it isn't in the perfected will of God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so we're dealing with barriers, blocks, and challenges already from the past. And do you not know that there'll be barrier, blocks, and challenges in the future? So we got to have an ear to hear.
Yes, sir. So as we talk about and continue to hover around this theme of handling it, you know, we can plan for the future. We can plan for 2021. That planning, we talked about beginning with prayer, actively making a list, being able to go into prayer with a listening ear to, as Dad pointed out, the creator of instruction. I love that.
Wait a minute. Can I stop you for a minute?
I think you're going to stop me, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. You're so kind. Thank you for yielding to the elder gentleman.
Yes, sir.
When we plan something, that's the point. Are we planning with or without God? I can plan something, but is it in the will of God? When we plan something, we're gonna execute it. Once we plan it,
Hold on, Dad. You're getting ahead of my point.
okay, I'm sorry. All right.
You're getting ahead of my point. See?
All right, all right.
Yes, sir. But let me come right back to that place. So again, our theme today, handling it. We're going to handle it in 2021. So there's the plan that comes first with prayer and reflection, taking that prayer and that reflection to God, seeing where we are, the things we've contributed to, balls we let drop, things that are even out of our control. And sure, even put out on that list, if we talk about making that list of what went well, what didn't go well, make a list of, tell on everybody, whoever did whatever to you, write it down, get it out of your system, get it on paper, right? That way we can focus on our plan, because we don't plan, around that outside interference. We don't plan for those things that we can't necessarily control. We're mindful of it, and we create a plan with what we're able to do. And then we ask God clearly for his intervention and his strength, power, grace, and mercy. But now to the point that you're at, Dad, with executing, if we're handling something, there's the planning phase, but then there's the preparation phase. So you're 1000% right. We can't just run into executing. And that's the point I was making at the top of the conversation. We want to sit at the end of the year sometimes, and we almost kind of get forced into this momentum of, even if we don't believe in New Year's resolutions, in our hearts and our minds, we start to steer toward, what's going to be different. What do we want to achieve in 2021? But there is the preparation. And here's the other thing about handling stuff. And I'm going to turn this to a question for you, Mom. As we prepare to handle things and we're in the preparation phase, we have to understand that we don't control everything, and everything may not go perfect, and we may not know how things are going to turn out. And I honestly believe that people leave a lot of stuff on the shelf because of the unknown. Mm-hmm. It's easier for me not to handle something, a difficult conversation with a family member, issues with our children, issues with coworkers, issues, with our boss, issues with our finances. We oftentimes leave stuff on the shelf because we feel like as long as it's on the shelf and we don't touch it, I know where it's at, and it's in a stable situation. I know where it's at. I know it's dysfunctional. And at least if I leave it there, I have that kind of guarantee. However, when I go to handle it, I don't know what is going to take place. And sometimes it's that unknown that sends us into apathy, and we really don't take hold and handle the things that God has empowered us to do. So part of the preparation phase is to get our mind toward, when I finally decide to take action. I've done the planning, I've done the praying, then the planning. When I decide that I'm going to take action, I'm not in control of what's going to happen, but it's still my duty to handle it. So, Mom, can you help speak to what can give us the courage and the energy to move forward, to handle some things in 2021, even though we don't know how it's going to turn out? Help us move from being apathetic and letting the same problems and the same issues sit on the shelf for another year, and actually grab a hold and begin to handle those things in some way or another.
Again, I think probably our starting point again is just being honest with yourself. And, is it because I have fear? Well, then let's start praying on the fear first.
Oh,
Lord, take the fear from me so I can do what you asked me to do. Was it because I'd gotten lazy along the way? Lord, take away that lazy spirit. A lot of times we don't want to call things what they really are. But in order for the Lord to deal with us, and in order for us to deal with things, we have to face it, so, and call it what it really is,
wow. So can I ask a question right there?
Yes.
So when you say sometimes we don't handle things because we're lazy, are you saying that we're willing to be in the midst of dysfunction because we're afraid of the amount of work it's going to take to actually make it functional?
It may be because we're afraid, or it may be because we're comfortable. A lot of people are comfortable in their dysfunction.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, because again, moving away from something takes a lot of courage. And there is a fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we don't deal with things because we're just comfortable in it. It's not so much that it's good for us. And a lot of times it doesn't even feel good. We're just comfortable knowing that this is what it is when I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want to have to deal with trying to figure out how to get out of it, how to change it. You know, it's a comfort zone.
Wow.
And comfort zone is not always pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always really comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a place where we don't have to fight or make change to get out of it.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, you're lighting a fire here, because as much as we complain about all that 2020 was, before, when we talk about having expectations for God to do things, sometimes that starting point is to disrupt the comfort. And if anything we know is completely true about 2020, is it wasn't a comfortable year in so many different ways.
Oh yeah.
People that we've relied on, who have been at the in critical positions of our life, you know, are no longer here. You know, clearly, you know, going through a pandemic health crisis. What's happening with jobs? What's happening with people who, you know, we knew 2020 was the year we were going to launch a new business and write a book and do all these other things. And it sounds like one of the early signs that God is moving in our lives is he begins to disrupt the comfort. Because if we are comfortable, then that means ain't nothing new going on. And I did say ain't, AINT, ain't nothing new going on if we're comfortable. So maybe one of the signs is to cling toward the discomfort, because when we have asked God to do things and we've been praying in 2019 for something to happen in 2020, well, when we see the disruptions of 2020, I'm encouraged to believe that God is going to answer those prayers. I'm encouraged to believe that God is doing the things that we've asked him to do. I'm encouraged to believe that he's thrusting us in a situation and circumstances to handle our business. So as you talk about, you know, people leaning toward comfort, you know, sometimes we want comfort more, you know, than we want what we've asked for. And that's an honest question that I think you've raised in front of us. How much do we want what we're asking God for? How much are we willing to be uncomfortable to get it? Because you can't have both. You can't be comfortable and also have the success and have the purpose and answer the calling that God has had on our life. I love that. Again, as we're talking about handling it, we talked about prayer and planning. We talked about preparing. Dad, what else do we have to do as it relates to preparing? You know, we know the prayer part. We put that first. We put a plan together, details, put plan on paper. But as we prepare ourselves, what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about? And what are the things that we need to actually do in that gray area of the preparing phase?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, you just, I thought you'd be about to speak up prophetic word.
I am.
Listen, listen. I don't know if we got it or not, but I'm looking at, and your question is more broader. It doesn't really, it's not really looking at just 2020. You're just talking. It gets a little broader, but.
Did you say it was a bad question?
No. It's good. But if I can narrow in the way that I'm receiving this is, I'm looking at 2020 as a year of historically the judges with the nation of Israel. I'm looking at the preparation as a Joshua's experience in 2021. Joshua's experience preparation was faith, obedience, joy, strength, unity, strong leadership. than the individual. We have an opportunity in, if we get to see a new year, to move into a Joshua type of spirit, a Joshua's movement. Under the judges' time, they had defeat, unbelief, disobedience, sorrow, weakness, no leadership. Nothing had a sure foundation. It was so rocky. But then Joshua comes up in with this energy, this motivation, observing what has happened in the past, and in spite of looking for the future. So what do we have? I'm gonna speak victory. I'm gonna see victory. I see the chains are broken. I see freedom. I see my faith increasing. I see progress. We're not stagnated anymore. You know, my spirit has brought under the confidence in God. And not only that, but when I pray, Joel, the prophet Joel comes up, because now old men shall dream dreams, young men shall see visions. Praise be to God. Then I see my strength revived, and I'm looking at more. So I'm looking at the Joshua perspective, you know, in the future, or even in 2021. And so,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you know, as you said that, the other piece about preparing is we have to understand, and even back to Mom's point about being honest, where we are really, really at. If you don't have self-awareness, that's a real problem. And I say that both as it relates to how we are, you know, naturally, as we would say, but also a spiritual self-awareness. You really have to have a pulse on where you are, or you're absolutely in trouble. I have to really have a pulse on where I am, or I'm really in trouble. And 2020 has also shown us that, because everything that not everything, many things that we've said won't work, are impossible, 2020 has showed us they will work and are possible. And if there's nothing else that I take from this year, I take a blown mind and newly created expectations and more pressure on myself. Because when we said that church looked a certain way, 2020 told us that church doesn't look that way. When we said we needed to physically go to the grocery store to shop, 2020 said maybe you're not going to be able to do that. When we said that certain work required us to go to certain buildings and have access to utilize certain equipment, 2020 showed us that there are all kind of innovative ways that we can do everything in life. When we said, and I'll even push a very sore spot, I can't live without this person doing what they do, 2020 said, well, now you're going to have to figure that out, because those people either aren't in the same roles that they were in, or those people are no longer with us. So this is also a very important year for self-awareness. We have to know, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What innovations and newness can we bring to the table? What things that we told ourselves are impossible that actually are possible? I don't want to get pushed into figuring stuff out because of necessity, right? We ended up reactively responding to 2020 and discovering things that we didn't even know that were possible, and they will be a part of our future moving forward. So I do think, you know, part of preparation is also self-awareness. You know, what do I know about where I'm at, and where I'm at in proximity to where I'm trying to go? And the more we're honest and realistic about that, the better we can pray, the better we can plan, the better we can prepare. And now I'll go into the last question. Pursue. So we talked about plan, pray, prepare, and now pursue, all around the theme of handling it. And again, I believe that we need to just stop playing games and we need to handle that stuff in our life. I think 2021, because of what 2020 has shown me, we need to handle it. We just need to handle it. Whatever we've been putting off, whatever we said was impossible, whatever we said can't be moved, whatever we said are the challenges that we can't get over because this is going on and this is going on. We've gotten stimulus checks. We've gotten a switch in political party seats in some instances. We've gotten some parties to do things that are uncharacteristic, and then other parties to do things that betrayed us, so to speak. So one way or another, this is showing me that all those excuses don't work, and we need to just get into it and just handle our business. We need to handle our business in 2021. So now we talk about that final stage, Mom, pursue. What are some of the things that you would throw and share with us as nuggets to the pursuing stage? Because we got through prayer, got through planning, we got through preparation. I'm sorry, I got my monitor here. So when I look over here, I'm actually looking at you. But we got the prayer, we got the planning, we got the preparation, and now it's the pursuit. What are some nuggets and advice you can give us as we pursue in 2021?
You have to be willing to make sacrifices.
Oh. A point is good when you start to do a little dance when you hear it. Oh, okay.
You have to be willing to make sacrifices.
Yes.
And again, I think that it might be coupled with comfort zone. A lot. Making sacrifices means you're out of your comfort zone. Making sacrifices means you have to get rid of fear. Making sacrifices means what you said about 2020, that we see that the things we thought weren't possible, they are possible. So making sacrifices is really crucial. And when we make sacrifices, it's not just, I'm speaking of even spiritually. Again, we get in our comfort zone. We have been in our comfort zone up to 2020 when it comes to our spiritualism, because we relied on the pastor, the prayer warriors, whatever you want to call them, to pray us through things. And we relied on them to come again, visit us at the hospital. We relied on them to, even for the funeral, pastor did a virtual funeral this year.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things we were comfortable because we knew we could just pick up the phone and say, hey, this is going on. Pastor, come, handle your business, handle this or that. But now we know that it can be done a different way. And doing things a different way in 2020, a lot of times it meant being self-sufficient. We had to be the person. We had to be the innovator to make it work.
Wow.
So making sacrifices and sticking to them, that's huge. That's 99% of it. And any person that starts a business, any person that's in business, any millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire will tell you they've made sacrifices along the way, huge sacrifices.
Yeah.
And we have to do that. And we have to make that sacrifice spiritually. Because again, I've seen fasting go from we didn't eat or drink for 3 days to, well, you just say you're not going to eat meat, but you can drink and you can do this. I've seen fasting go from not watching TV, listening to the radio, reading the newspaper, staying up on social media, so to speak, to being in a quiet place and just listening for the voice of God for that duration of that fast. I've seen fasting go from coming and gathering at a certain time with the pastor, with those who prayed, sacrificing that time, to, because I have to be at work, can I call in?
Right.
So, things have changed, but we need to make a sacrifice still with God. How, God, am I going to get to a place where I can hear you? How, God, am I going to get to a place where I can reach you?
Absolutely. And you in addition to sacrifice, as we talk about pursuing, the self-sufficiency I thought was a really, really excellent point to make. And I think that's another piece of what we have to give up. And I just want to parse in that. And I've learned this, now after Dad has completely thrown my age out there, and I'm proud of it, but just in case I wasn't, he's gonna make sure I'm proud of it. But in 37 years, if there's anything I've learned, is self-sufficiency, and there's humility in that, right? Because self-sufficiency doesn't mean that I don't need anything or anybody. Self-sufficiency means I need to do my part because no one can do my part for me, right? And that's self-sufficiency. And I think that's especially something that people struggle with a bit, because we want it to be agreeable. We want to get consensus. We want people to be happy about it. We want people to motivate us when we don't feel motivated. We want people to inspire us and cheer us up. But being self-sufficient means no one can play your part. No one can make you happy if you're not happy within. No one can make you feel like the sacrifice is worth it if you don't see the value in the sacrifice. No one can give you the energy to do the hard things if you don't embrace it, right? All of that in the self-sufficiency is absolutely important to the pursuit, because when we are pursuing what God has created as a purpose and a plan, that means we have a role that no one else can fill. So again, it's not arrogance in saying, I don't need anybody and I don't need anything. Self-sufficiency means you understand that there's a part that God specifically is holding us, I, to accomplish and achieve. And I think that self-sufficiency has become really important and really amplified in the way that 2020 played out, because everything that we could depend on as normal, whether it's our health, whether it's our paycheck, whether it's the delivery of the goods and the services that we need, whether it's the people that we depend on for different things, God has turned self-sufficiency upside down. And he's really made the point to us that if there is something that I'm requiring of you, you can't get a consensus vote on it. It is not going to be executed by committee. People are not going to like it. They're not going to like you. They're not going to like what you get, what comes out of it. That's self-sufficiency in addition to the sacrifice, Mom. I think was an excellent point. Dad, same question. We got 9 minutes. And I may or may not get to this final question, but we talked about prayer, plan, preparation, and now we're talking about pursuing. I'm doing my alliteration exercise, all P's, right? So what advice could you give us as it relates specifically to the pursuing phase as we go into 2021?
I was looking at, and again, I guess I'm stuck on Joshua.
Dad?
Joshua and Judges, but I'm looking at.
Come on.
I'm looking at David. David has such his life was full of so much turmoil.
Yes, sir.
And oh my goodness, you can't believe until you study David, how that it looked like life just, you talking about drop a bombshell on him.
Yes, sir.
But with Ziklag, all of those that stood, that the men that he had under him,
yes, sir,
treated his men, what he did for his men. And they loved David, but there was this particular time when he got blamed for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, David, it's your fault that our women are taken, our cattle, Ziklag is burnt down. That crushed David. David was looking at the future, not only for him, but his people. He goes to the priest and asks the priest, give me the ephod. He gets the ephod, and then he prays to God. And he asks God, Lord, what shall I do? Shall I stay here or shall I pursue? What shall I do? The people around him crushed him to where at all the other times, he really was able to turn on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And the abilities that God gave him, he was able to produce. But this particular time, he said, God, what shall I do? What shall I do? Shall I stay here or shall I pursue? That's after he sought the Lord.
Mhm.
And he had an ear to hear what the Lord said. And you know the story. I'm not telling you the history. On this particular time of Ziklag, God said, pursue. Now, automatically, it would have been a no-brainer to go after the people that destroyed your camp, your homes, and devastated your lives. No one went after it. It would have been an automatic thing because it's just normal. But he didn't move. He asked God, Lord, what shall I do?
Yes, sir.
The common sense would have told any of us, that's a no-brainer. You're going to ask God, go get him. But he didn't. He asked God, Lord, what should I do? Should I stay? David had two options in his mind. His options were, should I stay or do you want me to go? Sometimes the question is, Lord, what do you want me to do? And we really have the thoughts, or we think we have the answer to it. But if you think you have the answer, still wait on God and listen to what God is saying, even though you have really preconceived thoughts about what you're going to do. Pass the baton.
Yes, sir. Well, I hear you pulling out, I think, just that incredibly excellent point where prayer isn't just at the beginning of a process, it continues throughout. We continue to go back to God to consult him, to make sure that we are in his perfect will, and we continue to seek him for that constant input, and he'll give it. He'll give it as he needs, right? As we need. But then I also hear you, especially in the example of David, and I thought about this earlier. With David, what was interesting is David's promotion came with such a burden. And like you said, the burden of the people's expectations that were following and depending on him, the burden of the sensitivity. Leaders, I think good leaders become more sensitive. And I think sometimes we teach it backwards and we say to be a good leader, you got to be callous and rough and hard and things shouldn't bother you. I think what happens when you're a good leader is you become more focused. You're more sensitive because a good leader is very much in touch with those that he's leading. So I think the sensitivity actually increases for leaders. But I also believe that leaders are better at focusing because you're promoted to handle more burden. You don't get a promotion and more money and a bigger title for you to do the same thing that you was. It gets heavier and it gets harder. But when you become more focused on God and what his purpose is for you, what he's called you to do, the things that you've asked of him, what your role is, those things specifically that you are challenged and charged to accomplish and achieve, and that sweat equity you got to put in, when that focus is stronger, then you're able to execute. But you're right, David himself, found himself in a situation where pursuing wasn't just easy. Going or staying wasn't easy because it wasn't just about him. It became about so much more, but his focus was there. And because his focus never left the eyes of God, then David was able to do what we've seen him do time and time again, and he was continually victorious. So I think that's powerful, especially as we think about pursuing. It is keeping that steady focus on God, and that focus isn't just meditation of heart. It's not just meditation in our devotional and the way that we study the word, but it's also that continued dedication to
Can I just add one more thing?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Please, sir. When God told you to pursue, when you get there, what are you supposed to do? Overtake and recover all. The recovery was from the past. The taking was right now the present. That launched him. Overtaking, recover all, and then that launched him into his next season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And can I say one thing? You brought up a very important and crucial point as it comes. You put it in leadership, and you said in leadership you're sensitive to people and the things around us. But I would just like to bring that in, just a focus even a little more. We're all leaders of our destiny. And if we would just take even those nuggets that you said, even about leadership, and apply it to us, because we're the leadership of our soul. It's up to us to decide which direction that we're going to go spiritually. And if we're in tune, like you said, as leaders with the people we're leading, we need to be in tune with we're leading our soul. Mm-hmm. And take no prisoners, whatever it takes to make it to heaven, whether it's fasting, whether it's praying. This is a holistic approach, if you will.
Yes.
It's not just the spiritual side, it's the natural side. And I think about how even on this year, the stimulus checks and stuff, people looked at it as free money, but how many people looked at it as an increase and pay their tithes off of it? Mm-hmm. How many people took that money and did what they were supposed to do, and then you look at how many people just blew it because it was free money. God is looking at us to be good stewards over our soul, over the tangible, the natural things, as well as the spiritual things. So being a good leader, we have to lead ourselves. We have to start from within. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of times the reason why we err, it's not because of somebody else. It's because of we just didn't make a good choice. We didn't make a good decision, And again, just go back to reflecting and focusing on what was my part in this. Am I broke because I got, what was it, $1,300 or whatever it was? $1,200, whatever it was. But that was the same $1,200 you need because you were behind 2 car payments. Mm-hmm. Or let me bring it better, the rent. Now it's the rent padding is gone and people are going to be evicted. But all you needed was the same amount that was given you, but you decided to take that and blow it because it was free money, but your rent really needed to be paid.
Yeah.
So God is looking at us to be good stewards over this is not just a spiritual thing. It's not just a natural thing. It's the whole thing. Absolutely. We have to be a good leader over our souls, over ourselves.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I know I almost got caught and lost my sense of time here, but we are that was perfect. I'm talking about for me. You ended right on time, Mom. We are excited about what happened.
No, I mean, thank God it's your mother, but I know you gave your mother more time than me, but it's okay. I'm used to it. You told me you had 9 minutes and then gave her 8 on top of the 9, so it's all right.
There they go. Every time we talk about boxing. So, I'm excited, you all, about 2021. I am not spending personally the end of 2020 reflecting per se. I'm looking forward, and I'm not saying it's a theme for 2021, but 2021 is the year to handle business. we've got to pray, we have to plan, we need
Yes.
to prepare, and
Yeah.
then we need to pursue. And I believe that some of the nuggets you all gave out today were absolutely helpful. I thought about this earlier and I laughed to myself. I'm treating this period right now like the last day of school. You know, some folks on the last day of school before the summer hit, whoever they had some kind of beef with, some vendetta with, and they wanted to get even, or somebody they just couldn't get at during the year, you know, they picked the last day of school because they couldn't be suspended, you know, so they went after that person. And that's how I'm picking right now at the end of 2020. But not because I'm going after people or because I got some kind of score to settle. My focus is on whatever I did not achieve in 2020. I'm making my Santa list, my naughty and nice list. You know, what was my role in it? What was out of my control? How can I look at my part and figure out how to pray better and put the work into making the improvements that I need to make? Put your stuff on paper. The best plans and the best successes have come as a result of good planning. Put that stuff on paper, reflect, take it to the Lord, and then as we go into this new year, handle it. God has really equipped us and empowered us, and he's shown us in 2020 all the things that we thought were impossible, he flipped it. And now we have the opportunity to say, well, if all of these things have now become possible and will be a part of our lives forevermore, what other things does God have in store? So we're excited about that. We wish you all a very, very, very happy end of 2020. Wish you all a happy new year. I won't see you all on New Year per se, but also tune into the Miracle Central New Year's programming that will be coming through our Facebook and YouTube channel. But at this point, Mom, that if you all want to go ahead and conclude us for 2020, and we'll see you all welcoming us into 2021.
The schedule for the Lord says the same, and delay is coming.
There you go.
We will be start our service, New Year's Eve service at 11 o'clock.
Evening PM.
11 o'clock PM. And
December 31st, 11 o'clock PM.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be, again, it's been different all year. This will be a little different service, but something that we pray that it would launch the saints into the new year with more power. And again, what you just said, what we did not able to accomplish, I believe this service will kind of reflect and give us maybe some momentum into the 21. So
gonna catapult us into 2021.
So
awesome.
Yes.
Be with us, join with us, and see what the Lord is going to do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So don't forget to like and share. Hit the bell. We'll know you're there.
Wait a minute, is that all we're going to do with this last Sunday in 2021? Is that all?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, you all. We will see you 11 p.m. New Year's Eve.
We love you all,
Love you.
and
Love
be
you.
ready to pursue 2021.
That Joshua spirit.
God bless you.
God bless.
My brothers and sisters, I pray that this was a blessing unto you. First Lady Clay, would you like to say anything?
Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell. Leave a comment. God bless.